Hello everyone, this is part 2 of our Space Pirate Design Lab. We had a ton of entries for this episode of Design Lab, and I guess that's understandable because characters are generally seen as something less intimidating to tackle versus, say, mechanical industrial designs or environments, or creatures even. Although creatures are probably in second place behind characters. But anyway, it actually took me a 5 hour long live stream to just go through all the images. And some people watched that, and it helped me kind of narrow down the field to like 20. And then I went in and narrowed it down to a top 10 for you guys to vote on. I shouldn't say top 10 because obviously it's not really a tops, but I picked 10 that I think will represent a cross section of different ideas. So these 10 were picked purely for their design aesthetics. I thought maybe they had an interesting design. They had a design that was readable, that was kind of understandable, that just seemed to be original and have like a very specific idea to go along with it. So without further ado, let's see what the 10 I picked are. First up, we have this very interestingly designed character by Colin Iconic, and we'll just call him Colin DC. And the reason I picked this one is just because it has a very distinctive and unique silhouette, and their proportions are very kind of playful and slightly cartoony. You can see there's like giant arms, and it mentions something about a mech suit, but I don't know if I would quite put it like as a mech suit. It could just be some armor on some weirdly proportioned guy. But it just has a very kind of fun and interesting yet simple silhouette. And there's a nice mixture of like these ragged textures with some metal textures, and it keeps it loose enough as to where you can, kind of go in there and build it up on your own. It's not very tight, it's not fully rendered. This is kind of like the state of rendering that you want when you're doing thumbnails and kind of trying to brainstorm ideas. So I really enjoyed looking at that one, and there's definitely possibilities there for further expansion. Okay. Next, we have a design by Vox In, and I think the most interesting thing about this one is instead of the old, kind of cliche of the pirate who's missing an arm, missing a leg, he went with that. He went with the missing arm, except instead of giving it like the basic prosthetic, he went with something more slightly fantasy, but also very sci-fi-ish, in that he has kind of a hologram type arm. Kind of makes you think of like the holograms in like Mass Effect, like those kind of engineering type things, like their Omni tool, where it just kind of can generate a shape that's very useful. And in this case, it's generating a whole entire arm. And you can see he even wrote down ideas for like different kind of representations of the arm. There's a very abstract one, there's a more hologram looking one. So just altogether, I didn't see anything else, even remotely like that. So it was definitely an interesting idea, and certainly enough to get this into the finals. So other than that, he's just got a nice looking character, not too spacey. It looks like he's designed more to be on a ship or something, which is fine. You can go with like an outer space look. You can go with a look that just looks like he's a future guy that lives on a ship. But yeah, it's just kind of nice and simple. He doesn't go into too much detail on the rendering. He gives a few different options for like the head of the character, which is always a nice way to do things. I think I like the one in the little box on the side the most, just because it seems very interesting to me. It's kind of got this slanted, I don't know what it is exactly. I'd have to figure that out. But just this slanted little kind of ring around his head. And there's a lot of just interesting details. And it looks piratey just because of the structure of the clothes, but it also looks very sci-fi. So that's the kind of stuff that I love to see in this challenge. So great job on the design by Vox In. Next up, we have Blues, who has certainly been a contender in a lot of these design labs. In fact, I think he actually won the last character one, the female mage. That was a Blues design. But anyway, this time I decided to go with, he gave us a nice selection, but I went with the one that looks like a more heavy environmental suit. So it's very sci-fi looking. Now the main problem with these entries, just especially this one, is that it doesn't really capture a piratey feel. So, in order to make it to like a finished illustration, I probably have to like add some more piratey flair somehow. I guess that's kind of obvious. Is the main thing you do to add piratey flair is just kind of make skulls and stuff. Uh, but other than that, you just want it to look more, I don't know, custom, more like personally tailored to someone. A lot of like personality is basically the word I'm going for, because that's how you tell the difference between something that's very military, very structured, versus say something that feels more tribal and personal. That makes it feel more like a rebel type thing, like a pirate per se. Um, but anyway, yeah, that's Blues' design. Once again, it's very sci-fi, very heavy. And I guess I should mention with all of these, I'll probably try to mess with the design, a little bit, see if I can, bring it up to a more piratey sci-fi standard. I don't know, just slight edits here and there, but nothing too drastic. Here is a design by Noppo Monk, and I think the reason I like this one so much is that a lot of people did designs that had prosthetic legs. Obviously, a peg leg is a very common thing for a pirate to have. So there were a lot of prosthetic like single legs, prosthetic double legs even. But this is the one of the only ones that feels, I don't know, it feels very practical to me, like in a sci-fi sense. Instead of getting, like two legs and suddenly becoming, awesome and really mobile, this is like an old, probably captain type guy who's got two prosthetic legs. Maybe he lost them in an explosion or whatever. But he looks more dignified with them. He's got like a cane as well. Maybe he's not comfortable on his, prosthetic legs. He doesn't like it that much, and it's just kind of, I don't know. It's certainly different than any of the other ones I saw that had the prosthetic legs, and I think it's probably just partly because of, the personality given with the cane and with how he posed him. You can tell he has a certain personality of both respect and kind of, I don't know. Maybe he's getting too old for it. And there's definitely a lot of room for interpretation as far as like the actual costuming stuff goes. When we went through all of the designs on streams, a lot of times the ones that get like looked at more closely by the streams are the ones that are nice and rough like this. There were a lot of people that just did, sheets of like 6 or 10 entries, on one page that were just thumbnails of this level of completion. And those are the ones that are fun to look at because they really just focus on capturing a basic design element. And once again, that's what I'm looking for is just like these basic design elements that are what make up great designs. Up next, we have some designs by Jace Park, and I couldn't actually decide which of these two kind of go with for the top 10 because they both had a couple great ideas, but they felt a little off in spots. So I figure maybe we just kind of combine them into one design if we were to select something like this, maybe take elements from both, maybe not take elements, it doesn't matter. It's just some kind of combination, even if it's like 90% to 10%. Because he's got these two interesting designs. A lot of people, once again had prosthetic arms, but this was one of the few ones that had like the 4 prosthetic arms. He's got like prosthetic arms, 2 extra ones, one on each side. And then there's the kind of character that's more of a, I don't know, a run and gun type guy, an assault guy. And I just love the look of his helmet. It just has personality to it. It doesn't feel, boring or simple. Yet it is. It's very. If you look at it, it's basically just a round shape. But the panel lines and just the cutouts and things like that, the small details are what make it look, 10 times better than most other things. So it's just kind of highlighting the importance of your panel lines and the small kind of simple details when you do industrial design that make things look great or they can make things look bad. So these are two interesting designs. Once again, you can choose to vote for these like as a package, as like one design. So those were nice. Here is a more traditional take on our Space Pirate by Care Bear. And there are a lot of similar designs. Old pirate clothes, old pirate captain with just a bubble top, kind of astronaut helmet. But I feel like this one, despite some of its, cliches like the peg leg, it feels like a good like combination of the two. And I don't know if it's just like his arm being like this kind of I don't know, it reminds me of Terminator, like that just metal skeletal arm, or just the simplicity of it all. But it just the proportions just feel right to me, and I guess the designs just seemed like the best representation of that basic idea. So that was like kind of very standard approach, but I think Care Bear pulled it off in a way that just looks right to me. So good job for Care Bear on just kind of knowing how to present it in a very kind of reasonable and nice looking way. And it's just like a good combination of very simple rendering with like basic local values and yeah, details that are not really rendered but just really hinted at. Once again, that's the kind of finished quality we're looking for in these thumbnails when we do our design labs. It's like this level of just polish where it's just everything's hinted at. You can kind of make it out in your mind. So I don't know if I would actually leave the head. I'm not sure what I would do for the bubble helmet. I mean, I'd leave it, but I'm not sure if I would do like the clear glass, or maybe I would do something more golden. And in fact, Marker Inc. had a very similar approach, which I almost picked. It was up in the air between Marker Inc.'s and Care Bears because they were very similar in terms of costume and everything. But Marker Inc. had this wonderful gold round helmet. So great job by Marker Inc. I thought I would just, put this one in because it's slightly different. But anyway, let's move on. So Tal Fox gave us a nice big sheet of different space pirate designs. I would say they were all pretty heavy on the kind of sci-fi space side of things and didn't really show off that many pirate elements. But there was one thing that I really liked, and that was his gun. And I'm talking about the second gun, the one on the bottom. And I thought that was just a great, really basic representation of like a futuristic take on that kind of old classic Pirates of the Caribbean style gun. It just looks like a slightly futuristic sci-fi version of it. So I just liked the silhouette and the look of that gun. It's very basic. Yet for whatever reason, it just speaks to me. It looks great. So I kind of pictured this guy on the very left over there holding like two of them, and suddenly he starts to look a bit more like a pirate. It's obviously his outfit's very spacey, very sci-fi, but that's okay. That's practical in our sci-fi space pirate setting. So maybe he just stole some space astronaut uniform, and he's just maybe he personalizes it a little bit to make it his own. But just having those like classic guns just would I feel would really make it pop as like a space pirate. So also his sci-fi designs are just a lot of fun. They're very basic, but they're very effective in terms of being space setting. Yeah, my talking's getting just lazy and terrible. All right, let's go to the next one. Here is a very quick looking sketch by LaPush, and there were a few that had these kind of giant, tall glass domes for like helmets. I shouldn't say domes, they're not quite domes, but just very tall, like jar shaped helmets. But I thought LaPush just kind of had the right proportions on the whole character to pull it off well. Granted, it kind of looks like some weird space Mr. Freeze, but I don't know. I just thought it looked like it had enough potential to be taken into something more interesting in a final kind of rendering stage. So who knows how see-through that like helmet is? If that skull is just like painted on the front, or maybe the guy inside has like some weird skull stuff going on top of him. But regardless, it just kind of captures that proportions of the tall helmet in a really nice way. It feels I don't know, it feels pleasant to look at more so than a lot of the other ones that did the very similar helmet. So I thought LaPush just kind of did a great job with that one. Next up, we have this more cartoony style crewman by Chuck. And Chuck had some great kind of cartoony proportions in his work. It just kind of has a lot more playful and fun feel to it. And I kind of enjoyed that. There weren't many people who really go for like their own unique kind of brand of proportions and cartoony style. But that can work just as well as anything else. In fact, if you're more comfortable with that, I'd certainly welcome to all brands of styles and kind of ideas when it comes to how you draw people. So this one's just a lot of fun. He focused on like this loose silhouette, and you can see it's just very round. You can tell a lot from the character just from looking at his shape. Once again, I've talked about that before. It's kind of a very French style to really show the character's personality by looking at the shape of the character. So this guy, he's a little crewman. He's even got these cute little juice boxes around his belt here. So this feels very cute. This could be like in a Pixar movie about space pirates or something. But yeah, he's got like those big arms, those big forearms, and it just kind of works. I don't know if I could space him up a little bit. He kind of looks like he could be in space, but that would probably just come down to like some slight alterations and like detail stuff. I wouldn't want to mess with any of the proportions on anything or that kind of basic stuff because it has that great feel to it going on. But yeah, he's obviously supposed to be like the crewman on board, probably like an engineer type guy. Make sure the warp engine cores are working to maximum efficiency and all that wonderful stuff that you need to do on a spaceship. So yeah, that's just a fun design. It makes me happy. So thank you, Chuck, for bringing us your unique style. And last up, we have this design by Jimin Cho. Jimin Cho had a bunch of interesting designs actually. Or there were like three that I was trying to decide from. He had one that had an interesting shark armor, and one that just had a nice kind of beefy appearance. But I thought I would go with this one just because I don't know. I like the grappling hook idea, and it's just kind of. But you picture someone in space kind of trying to hijack a ship or something, and obviously they're gonna need like grappling hooks and whatever just to attach themselves so they don't go spiraling off into the abyss of space. And the helmet and everything was just original enough to make me pick this one. And there's like little hints of different types of textures, like on the clothing. So I just like that. It just had the right amount of rendering and personality to really stand out as a design. So anyway, I think that's about it. We've taken a look at our 10 finalists for this episode of Design Lab. And I guess I should mention, I completely forgot, but in order to vote for one of these 10, just write in the comments below. You could write like, "Oh, I like this one the best," and you can use the name that I wrote in big black letters on each of the images, and just use that name and vote in the comments below. And it'll get a bit messy in the comments. People will be saying stuff. People will be voting, but that's okay. I go through it kind of quickly and no, I shouldn't say quickly. I go through it, carefully, and I figure out who voted for what. And it's also nice to be able to talk about what you voted for and why. Just have fun, discuss art, maybe draw some art today. Always be drawing art. Do it every day, and you'll have a lot of fun. So I think that's it. I look forward to seeing the results of what you guys pick, because once again, I have no idea which way you guys are going to go. So it's always a surprise to me, and I get to render something that I wouldn't normally kind of render, or do a style I wouldn't normally do. So it's a lot of fun. It keeps me on my toes, keeps me out of any comfort zones, because that's the great thing about kind of involving other people in your work is it assures you that you're not going to get into your comfort zone. So a lot of people, especially even do these design labs second part, first, second part, and they're like, oh, I've never tried to draw males. I've never tried to draw sci-fi. I've never tried to draw this, and that's great. That's a great reason. I'm glad that these design labs can help bring you out of your comfort zone, because the best way to really get good is just to keep yourself on your toes. Keep trying things you haven't tried before. Don't get complacent in what you draw. Don't get lazy. Don't just draw the same things. Always be trying to draw something you've never done before. Uh, yeah, I think that's about it. So thank you for watching. I hope it was fun, and I look forward to seeing your comments.